If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. Most of you remember back in the fall, I covered this massive Psyop, the killer clown sightings that were popping up all over the world. Everybody was reporting on it in the mainstream media, and it kept spreading. It was a case of they tell a friend, and then someone else tells a friend, and then people start getting in on it, and then start dressing up as clowns. It was all part of a massive psyop. And you could see how mind control works while this whole thing was going on, because it was spreading like wildfire. And the media would not have reported on it if it wasn't part of their agenda. The White House wouldn't have addressed it, which it did. The White House in a press briefing addressed the killer clown sightings. Nobody was ever arrested. Nothing really ever happened. Yes, a few people got brought in because they were calling in fake clown killings and shootings and bomb threats at schools and all that kind of stuff. But there was never anybody victimized. Stories were spreading about murders happening, killings happening. And then, of course, those stories end up getting covered up because they were revealed as hoaxes. But the media kept running with it and kept talking about it as part of a psyop. That's how it works. If they're talking about it in the media, that means it's part of an agenda. And what they really were doing with this whole killer clown sighting thing was they were poking people, and they were saying, look, if we can influence people, we can use mind control to get everybody scared and everybody in fear, which is what they do with the mainstream news all the time. And then they were getting people to imitate it. They were getting people out there to go buy clown costumes and go around in other people's yards and dress up, and it was happening. So the mind control was working. But now, months later, we actually have the return of the killer clown psyop. We have them back. A sighting in Pennsylvania where there are actually armed men dressed as clowns terrorizing kids, according to this story, which of course was posted at 7:33 a.m. It says 2 armed men dressed as scary clowns are being sought by police in western Pennsylvania after they frightened a group of children over the weekend. According to the news in Pittsburgh, the incident happened in West Mifflin on Saturday afternoon. A father of 3 said his kids were playing outside when they said 2 men dressed like scary clowns and carrying weapons seemed to come out of nowhere. My kid came running in the house screaming that there were 2 guys chasing him. I said to my kids, "Are you lying or something?" And they were like, "No, we're being really serious." I looked over and they showed me where they were, and there's 2 guys running up a hillside. That's what he was quoted as saying, this father. He said, "I just said, hey, what are you doing over there?" And they just kept running and everything. Okay. I mean, it sounds pretty simple. So they just kept running. So these men dressed as clowns. So just for the record, how do we know that these men were actually armed? Apparently one with a pipe and one with a shotgun. When the police arrived, they searched the area but found no trace of the men. The incident mirrors numerous reports around the world of people dressing as clowns to scare and threaten children back in September and October of 2016. Reports became so frequent that it caused a bit of a panic in the United States, and schools began banning clown masks for Halloween costumes. So you remember that we had many places like Target that were no longer selling Halloween masks because of what was going on. And of course, the mainstream media continued to pick up on the story and push it and push it and push it. More than 24 states were terrorized by clown sightings, in which began in South Carolina when a gang of clowns tried to lure children into the woods. And when I talked about this back then, the main thing that was really going on was that this was just spreading and spreading and spreading, but nobody was getting arrested. These clowns just kept escaping. They were like Bonnie and Clyde. They were just getting away. Guys dressed up as clowns running around the woods and the streets. You would think maybe some people would be able to see them and arrest them, or at least go over and question what they were doing. But I guess when you're dressed up as a clown, you can just turn invisible and teleport and get away from the police very often. I mean, that's what ended up happening. And this spread to the UK, it spread to Australia. It was going on all around the world, according to reports. And we were seeing videos, viral videos of clowns getting pulled over and beaten up. And it was just massive, massive pandemonium, which is what they created through this story. And it shows you how they can create this, right? They come out with a story, chasing kids into the woods, trying to lure kids. Nobody gets arrested. Nobody gets found. The next day, there's more and more stories. The next day, it's more and more stories. Now it's spreading by state, It's in Arizona now from South Carolina. It's spread across the United States of America, but nobody's been arrested. The only thing that they did was they went to a few people who prank called schools saying that they're going to be bomb threats, of course, because kids were trying to capitalize off of it, trying to get the school closed by saying that someone's going to come in dressed as a clown. It turned into people playing pranks on one another, but it shows you how psyops work and how that they can take something like this. They can push it not only through the mainstream, but push it on social media, and they can get and influence people to go along with it. Not only believe it and be scared, but to partake in it. And that's what happened. People were partaking in this, going to the store and buying clown suits, running around other kids' yards. They found humor in this sickness. And that's really what's scary about it. And I think that entire thing, and I still believe the entire thing, was a massive mind control operation that they were doing. But now we're hearing it again. It's coming back. I don't know. We'll see. This is just one story that's just come out recently. But this is how the first story started, right? It started and then it died out over, the Christmas time period, December. Now we're in March. Let's see if this psyop continues again, if they're going to build it back up. Because that's what they do with the news and stuff. It's a giant experiment in all of us. They look at us as if we're rats or mice in a maze, right? They try to lead us one way, lead us the other way, see how we react to things. They're taking notes. They're studying people. That's one of the reasons that there's full surveillance on everyone. That's why, these CIA operations like Facebook exist. Because they want to see how you're feeling, how you're reacting. They put certain, Facebook's openly admitted, they put certain news feeds or news stories in your feed, and then they study the behavior of you after seeing that in your news feed. I mean, it's a massive psychological operation. So they did their first round of testing. Will there be a second round of this massive clown psyop, these sightings that will continue to pop up? Will people once again start dressing up as clowns? Following the lead, because this is what they want. They want to be able to create stuff like this and get people to play copycat. It's not just about the fear propaganda. It's not just about getting people afraid to let their kids go outside because there might be clowns. It's also about getting people to do what they want. Now, they already have, obviously, a massive mind control operation on all of these countries, specifically in America, where zombies just walk amongst us, where they lead people certain directions. They get people to buy into all this stuff, the left and the right, the illusion of a republic, the illusion of freedom. And that's because this entire thing that's going on, this entire New World Order, this whole thing is based off of mind control. That's what it's based off of. And like I've said a million times over, they're going to usher all of this in through mind control. They're not going to usher it in through force. They're going to usher it in through mind control. And this is another perfect example of how psychological operations work. Because they create the fear, they create the panic, and on top of it, they're able to manipulate people into going along with it, to imitate it. And that's what they want. And again, this sighting was in Mifflin, Pittsburgh. So it was in Pennsylvania. And I want to give credit to the channel, James Munder. He's a friend of the channel. He broke this story. I just saw his video on it. I had to report on it. Being that it was something I covered before Pizzagate, it was just going on. The stories just kept popping up. It was getting more and more ridiculous every single day. But what's also interesting, like I said earlier, is that there's no trace of the men. But apparently the men were armed with a shotgun and a pipe. And then the media takes the story and they run with it. So, I mean, think about that. If you called the police and you said that there's people in your yard dressed up as a toilet and a turd, harassing your kids, and then your kids came, ran into the house, and the dad came out, and they ran up the tree dressed up in a toilet costume, and you reported it, you called the police, and they said, well, we didn't find anybody, there's no traces of anything, okay? Wouldn't the police say, all right, I'm a little suspicious of the people who might have called this in? How does this become national news? How is this on the Daily Mail? How is the mainstream media picking up on this? Don't you think a producer at the in the newsroom would say, well, was there an arrest? No. Was anyone found? No. Was there evidence of a pipe and a gun? No. Okay, so there's really no story here. Why would we report on it? Because they want it reported on. That's why. They want this reported on. So even a story with no evidence, which sounds absolutely ludicrous, gets picked up and put into the Daily Mail. Of course, the Daily Mail's a rag sheet, but they all work under the same umbrella. And they want this stuff out there. Because common sense tells us that they wouldn't report on things like this because they would just be deemed completely made up and quote unquote fake news. Because there's no evidence to support anything except the person making a claim that two men dressed up as clowns were in his yard. No different than, like I said before, if you called and said a guy was dressed up as a toilet, they would laugh it off and they'd say, okay, man, are you on drugs? Let's get you down to the station and we'll talk to you. But no, there's guns. We have killer clowns carrying weapons around now. There's sightings. They have weapons. They have guns. They have pipes. But we have no evidence of anything, but we'll report on it. And that's because that's what they want. They want this stuff picked up. They want it reported because it's part of a psychological operation. So we'll see if this spreads again. We'll see if this is just the first and now we'll get quote unquote copycats. Will more and more people be popping up now? Wink, wink. In other states? Will the mainstream media pick up on this distraction, which is really what it is? These stories are distractions, but they're also psychological operations. So we'll see what the future holds with the random sighting, once again, of killer clowns, this time armed with a pipe and a shotgun, despite no actual tracking of these people, even though there are cameras on every street corner. They're watching us at all times. If they really wanted to find anyone, they could. You couldn't go hiding if you wanted to, especially if you're dressed up as clowns running up hills through the woods, carrying shotguns and pipes. I think some people might notice you and maybe report you to the police or say, hey, yeah, we saw him go this way, but nobody sees anything. What a coincidence for the Psyop known as the Killer Clown Sightings. Give me a break. I thank you for listening to today's show. God bless all of you and your families.